Hi there, it's Raina with LYLO Crafts, and I'm so glad that you are here today to check out all of these peppermint and gingerbread videos. This is some of the best things that I have made. So we're going to start off with these sweet little gingerbread girls. What I'm using are some of these gingerbread foam cutouts from the Dollar Tree. But if they don't have them, you can get foam at Hobby Lobby or Michael's and just draw your little gingerbread shape out. And then what I did was I traced it on some cereal box, and that is to add some strength to it. Now I'm just going to glue the front onto the cereal base with just some wet glue. I am taking a little makeup sponge and some walnut stain from my stash and going around the edges, and that is to make it look a little bit more like a cookie, how it gets a little bit more burnt or a little bit darker on the edges. Now let's make her dress. First, let's pull off a piece of tulle about 12 inches in length. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut it on off, and it does not have to be exact. So you're going to take your tulle and you're going to fold it in half, and you're going to keep the finished edge, the folded edge on the bottom. Fold this edge under, and then I'm going to make my first pleat. So she has a finished edge, and I am going to staple. So that's my first pleat. Then I'm just going to go to the next one like that and staple. And I'm going to do that all the way down. Okay, when you've got it all stapled, it should look something like this. And I'm going to put it right underneath her arms. And I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue at a time. And then I'm going to go ahead and just push this right on into the hot glue. Okay, and once you've got that glued on, it should look like that. And then now I'm going to go ahead and now we're going to take the red tulle and cut a 6-inch piece for the top of her dress. I'm going to fold this in half so I have a finished edge. And then you're going to turn that underneath, and then you're going to make a pleat just like you did for the one underneath. Fold it and staple it in place, and then repeat that for the rest of the skirt. So now all we've got to do is attach it right on top of the white part of the skirt. And next we're going to go ahead and make the bow for her hair. So I'm going to use tulle to make her little hair bow, and I'm just using the same Dollar Tree tulle that I used to make her dress. Cut your tulle to the length that you want your bow to be, and then I am using my fingers to do a fan type of fold. I am using just a clip to hold it in place so I can take my little string and wrap it around the middle of the bow and tie it in a knot. Now, since I want a 2-layered bow, I'm going to repeat these same steps for the red tulle. Okay, now I've got my bow hot glued together, and I've got her bow kind of positioned on her head where I want it. I'm just going to put a little pencil mark just about there where I think that her eyes could go. Now I'm going to go ahead and stamp her face. And if you don't have a stamp, you can just draw it in with a marking pen. And I'm now using a little jelly roll pen to put the little whites of her eyes in and a little bit of highlights. And now I'm going to put some cheeks on her, and I'm using just some pink little stickers that I got from the Dollar Tree. And the reason why I'm putting the cheeks on is so then I know how big I want to draw her mouth. Now I am going to do that in pencil first, just in case I make a mistake. Next, we're going to finish off her dress, and we're going to take a little bit of ribbon and attach it to the top and wrap it around the back. And anchor it into place with some hot glue. Next, we are going to make a little bow for her dress. And so you need about 1.5 inches of tulle, and you are going to do the same kind of fold back and forth like a fan or an accordion fold. I've got my little tulle bow made, and I'm just going to put a dab of hot glue on the back, and I'm going to put it right in here in the middle. And then I'm going to put a bow on top of it. I'm just going to add a little pom-pom with hot glue to top the bow off. So next, I want to add the icing to her, and instead of freehanding it, I'm going to use Rick Rack as my guide. And I'm just going to cut it to length to fit over her ankles and over her wrists, and then I'm going to glue that in place. A couple of little white pom-poms and a jingle bell, and then a double bow around her neck for her necklace. I've turned her over, and now I'm adding the back of her and gluing it in place. What I'm going to do next is cover over the Rick Rack with white Nouveau drops, but any fabric paint will do. And there you have it. Isn't she adorable? And here is how she looks in the Christmas tree, along with some ideas and pictures of some of her friends. Every sweet girl gingerbread needs a boy gingerbread to go with her, and so we're going to use the same items from the Dollar Tree and do all the same steps that we did on the girl. So now let's get to the decorating. And so I'm using a piece of felt, and this felt I did get from the Dollar Tree, and you will need a piece that measures 6 inches by 6.5 inches. Fold it in half. You're going to put a dot at to the 5 inches where it meets the seam, okay? And you're going to do that on both sides. And once you do that, then all you're going to do is just cut along that line. You should have something that looks something like this. Take hot glue, and we're going to glue on this line, and this side. Now, those of you who sew, for sure, you could go ahead and sew this. So you can see that I didn't cut it quite evenly. And so all I'm going to do is just trim that up so it is even. So now we've got our basic shape to our Santa hat. It's going to go on our gingerbread guide like that. What we're going to do next is add the furry trim. I am using this microfiber dust mop that I cut apart from the Dollar Tree, and you'll need about a 3-inch piece of that. I'm going to glue this onto the inside of the brim of the hat. And then what I'm going to do is fold it up. So trying to get the seam of the mop underneath and allowing the fur to fold up like that. And I'm just going to apply a few dabs of glue to hold it in place. So once you've got fur glued into place, and make sure that you didn't glue the opening. And if you did, you can just pull it right apart because it's only hot glue. And the next thing I'm going to do is just glue my pom-pom onto the end. When I stick it on, I'm just going to manipulate the hat into kind of the shape that I would like it. Now the next thing I'm going to do is glue my hat in place, and then I'm going to flip it over and glue the back side. Now I got my hat all glued in place. I'm going to apply Rick Rack trim as my guide, and then go on top of that with white fabric paint. Now if you have white Rick Rack trim, you could just glue that on and call it a day. Next, I'm going to go ahead and draw in the mouth of this sweet gingerbread boy with pencil. And now this sweet little boy needs a bow tie. So I've got a double bow that I'm going to put on with a dab of hot glue. And I'm going to add a sweet little jingle bell to the center of his bow tie. Next, I'm giving him 3 little pom-poms for his outfit. I'm going to go ahead and take my white Jelly Roll pen and color in the whites of his eyes and also the highlights. And this time I'm going to use some black stickles to draw his mouth in. And then I'm going to use a few smaller of these stickers for his sweet cheeks. And to add just a little bit more sparkle and shine, I'm taking a red glitter glue and making dots around each of those little pom-poms. And I have iced over that sweet little Rick Rack, and now I'm just placing some peppermint little polymer clay pieces to add on to that sweet Rick Rack and decorate him up even a little bit more. So there he is, all done. He is so cute, and he is all ready to hit the town with his sweet little gingerbread girlfriend. Next is a super easy project. We are going to transform this metal hanger of a truck into a gingerbread truck. So the first thing you're going to do is just take some apple barrel acrylic paint and in nutmeg and go ahead and paint the entire truck out. And now all we're going to do is follow all the raised lines and put our white fabric paint on it. I got this sweet little pig from Hobby Lobby. It is filled with all different shapes of peppermints. I thought these round ones would go perfect for the tires. So all I'm doing is cutting off a little bit of that excess plastic, and I am taking my wet glue and applying it. And I'm doing that same thing for the other tire. I'm just holding those up in place so that they get stuck really, really well. Now I'm taking out these stickers that I got from Hobby Lobby. They're all filled with little sugar cookies, and I'm gonna use Santa as driving this gingerbread truck, and I'm just applying a foam dot on the back of him so he can pop out of the window a little bit, and I'm gonna stick that on with some hot glue. And we're gonna keep on embellishing this sweet little truck. I'm going to add one of these sweet cookies to the door. Now this little truck needs some gumdrops for its headlights, so I'm going ahead and adding that, and this came from Hobby Lobby. Let's dress up the railing of the bed of the truck with even more of these sweet gumdrops. So let's fill up the back of the truck with this fun pick of peppermints so it is exploding out, and let's top it all off with a sweet bow. And I want to embellish that little bow even a little bit more with that green swirled candy. So I'm just going to go ahead and break the bottom of the lollipop off and glue it into place. So that completes our gingerbread truck. And here's the peppermint version of the truck in red. And here is how the sweet little truck looks on the tree. Now we are going to make the cutest little peppermint stick that can be an ornament or used as a pick in your tree to use in a centerpiece. And I'm using this yarn from the Hobby Lobby. And I'm also utilizing a dowel, a wooden dowel that I got from there, but they also have shorter dowels that are available at the Dollar Tree. I'm applying a little bit of hot glue, and I'm putting the red yarn on the bottom and holding that in place. Now you're going to add another dab of hot glue, and you're going to grab your white stem of yarn, and you're going to push down and hold that in place. And be careful that you do not burn yourself while you are doing this. So now what you're going to do is just wrap the red one around and glue that right over the point where you started. And then what I'm going to do is take the red one and cross over the white one, because we're trying to make a red and white alternation. And then I'm going to spin the stick around. And so now what we're going to do is try and apply even pressure, and we are going to continue to twist both the red and the white yarn around that stick. As I twirled this around, I did not add any additional hot glue along the way. I'm only going to add it to the top of the ornament. So I am at the top, and I am trimming off the excess. And I'm now applying a bit of hot glue to put the red one in place. And now I'm going to take the white one and finish it off at the top. I am swirling it around. I'm going to cut a bit more so that it fits so nicely underneath there. I'm going to apply hot glue on the very tip of that skewer right there. And I am turning the top of that white piece to tuck the end underneath and make sure it's firmly in place. We're going to put a beautiful bow on. I do have a tutorial for how to make a double bow, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. I am dovetailing the ends here, which you do that just by pinching the ribbon in half and then cutting on a diagonal from top to bottom. I am lining my two pieces of ribbon up so they are about the same length. And now I'm ready to just hot glue that in place. The other thing you can do is glitter up your yarn. So I'm showing you one that's glittered, and this one I sprayed with spray adhesive and then sprinkled glitter on top. Just know if you do that, it does get a little bit sticky. I'm going to put this sweet little gingerbread face on in the middle. I'm putting that bow in place, and oh, I think she looks so adorable. And so next we are going to transform these tiny plastic little houses from the Dollar Tree into adorable gingerbread houses. So the first thing you've got to do is paint out the colors and change them to a gingerbread color. So I'm using apple barrel paint in chestnut here. So once the house is all painted, it's time to move on to the roof. And this time I want to turn the roof into a sugary wonderland filled with peppermints. So the first thing I'm doing is applying some liquid glue all over, and now I'm sprinkling it on with diamond dust. This is the most sparkly glitter that there is. If you can't find that, iridescent, chunky glitter would work just as well. We're ready for the peppermints. I'm gonna cut off that little plastic tab, and then I am gonna take hot glue and start gluing them straight onto the roof. And now that all the peppermints are in place, I'm ready to move on to the candy canes. So I've glittered up my candy canes, and I want to attach them to the turret. So I'm going to go ahead and use some hot glue and glue them in place. And I want to continue embellishing this sweet little house. So I think I'm going to put the 2 candy canes right there in front of the window. And a gingerbread house just wouldn't be complete without a gingerbread person. So I'm using this little gingerbread sticker to apply to the door as if he's walking out of the house. And so as I work that glue all the way around the house, I am going to sprinkle each side with this diamond dust and shake off all the excess. Wow, what a transformation. Look at how it sparkles. And one last thing to do is to really puff up that snow so it stands up. I am using a product called Snow Tex, and I am just applying it with the end of that paintbrush, and I am patting it on into place. I don't want it smooth. I want it texturized so it mimics real snow. I even like this effect so much, I am going to apply it onto some of the places where snow would have naturally fallen on the top of this house. And you can see that I'm even taking this same Snow Tex all around all the outsides of the house. And I'm even adding snow on top of the header of the doorway and on the ledge around the windows as snow would have gathered there. And while that is still wet, we want to take our diamond dust glitter and go and sprinkle it over all of that snowy texture that we just added and shake off the excess. And didn't this one turn out so fantastic? So the one we made together is right there in the middle. It's got a sweet little candy shop to the left and a gumdrop house to the right. And let me show you how they look in the tree. Next is this sweet gingerbread sled. It has got to be one of my most favorite transformations of all times. It is a red plastic sled that is from the Dollar Tree. And what I did was I painted it with a gingerbread color with acrylic paint. And I've done the sides, and now I'm talking about painting the bottom. I think in hindsight, the best thing to do is to use spray paint. So before I paint the bottom, what I want to do is attach these little feet, and they are the little snowman wood pieces from the Dollar Tree. I've used both hot glue and E6000 and attach those feet to the bottom, and I'm going to let that set up overnight. So now it's the next day, and I am starting to put these gingerbread icing lines onto the sled. And what I did was I took my ruler and I used the width of the ruler as my guide, and I made some super light pencil lines right on to the sled so that I mark that all out going in both directions. And then I am taking caulk that I got from the Dollar Tree to make the lines. Now, you could use puffy paints, you can use spackling in a tube, so you can use anything that you would like. And when I got to the edges, I tried to be really careful to line up my lines. And now I'm showing you the all-purpose caulk that I use from the Dollar Tree. It is a bit stiff to work with, so it might be easier if you use fabric paint, but I thought this was thicker and might have a prettier line. So if you do use the caulk, you want to make sure as the tube empties out that you squeeze it down to the bottom of the tube, the caulking in there, and fold it over so that it keeps the caulk at the bottom. And now you're ready to go ahead and apply it to your sled. You are squeezing the tube. Try to apply that even pressure so you'll get a nice even line. Now that we've got all of our sides done and they have dried, we're going to use that same caulk and apply it very generously on the edge of the sled to show that it had been dripping down over the side. And if it has any clumps or anything, you can always take your finger and wet it and go ahead and smooth it on out. So now we want to go ahead and add our sweet little candies, our faux candies to the edge. I am using these tiny little frosted gumdrops that come from Hobby Lobby, and I am choosing to alternate between red and green. Now the next thing we're going to do is take these sweet little candy cane ornaments, which also come from the Hobby Lobby. I love how they are hooked on the edge, which really mimics the sled bottom or the sleigh bottom. And we're just going to take that silver part off, and I'm just going to put a dab of hot glue on the inside and close off where that ornament hanger would go. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add just a dab of red paint. And what I am using is some glitter glue so that it blends in nicely with the glitter stripe on the candy cane. So what I'm going to do now is flip it over, and I'm putting some hot glue on the feet and some E6000, and I am holding those little candy canes in place, putting the feet on, and I am going to allow that also to dry overnight. So it's the next day and it has set up so nicely. I'm so excited about it, and I thought the last finishing touch would be to go ahead and paint it up with some glue and add some beautiful sugar, aka glitter, to it. And here it is, all styled up in my house. So next up are little gingerbread houses made out of these Dollar Tree bird houses. And the first thing you need to do is snip off that little perch. And this time what I'm going to be doing is covering the sides with some craft colored cardstock and also working with this little glitter foam in both white and red. So the first thing I'm doing is I am tracing out my little craft cardstock and getting the shape of the inside piece of the birdhouse to be able to go ahead and cover the entire front of it out. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make another duplicate one once it fits, and I'm also going to cut the side pieces out as well, and all of these I'm going to attach with glue. You can see all the pieces are attached on all the sides, and now we're going to move on to the roof where I want to use some glitter foam strips to go ahead and cover that. I've just roughly measured the width of those, and then I cut it to the right width, and now I'm just going to take my scissors and trim off the excess to cut it to length. And I'm going to do that for all of the sections of the roof. Now that all the red foam is in place, I want to put some little white pom-poms on to hide the edge. And I have just hot glued all those on. And now what I'm doing is measuring the base, basically all of the sides, to cover those up with the white glitter foam so it will look like snow is on the ground. And I am just cutting them to length, and then I will hot glue those in place. And to hide the edge of that wood, I'm just going to wrap the rest of that little glitter strip of foam over the base with some hot glue, and that will give it a nice, beautiful, finished edge. And I'm going to do that all the way around the little house. And then I'm taking out some paper straws that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm measuring it to length, and I am cutting it right a little bit shorter on the edge because I want to leave some space to attach the one that's going to go down for that to be on the edge as well. And I am just using that as a guide. I'm holding it up together, both of the sticks, and cutting them both to length. And now I want to make a 45-degree angle so that the straws will fit nicely together. And now I'm going to hot glue those in place and measure for the side pieces. Again, just using my fingers as the measuring stick, cutting them to length, and then gluing both sides in place. And the next thing we're going to do is work on the base, and I'm going to use a straw to cover the base. And so I'm going to start on the front, and I'm going to measure it all the way from end to end. I'm going to clip that on. Now we're just going to do the sides. And for this, I'm going to cut this one a little bit shorter from end to end because I'm going to use a pom-pom to connect the two. Okay, so it looks like that on the front, and I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to put some trees in the back here. And since I don't have a door, I'm going to need at least 3 rows of trees, I said, which was I put 2 tall ones and then a small one in the middle. Let's add some fencing to the front of the house. I'm going to use the ones with the pointy pickets, and I'm just going to hot glue these in place. We've got all the fencing in place now and all of the sides decorated, and now we can top off the roof. I'm going to come down almost to or right to where the second piece of the roof is. And all I'm doing is just drawing U's basically. And so I'm going to do my second row, and I'm going to start in between and then make a U, as you can see, like that. Okay, so that it looks something like that. And then I'm going to do the very same thing on the other side. Next, we're going to go ahead and add some pom-poms, or those are our gumdrops, to the roof in red, white, and green. And didn't that turn out so cute? And all we need to do is add the frosting to the center of the roof where the foam meets. And here's another example of how I decorated one up, this time with just red and white dots on here. They are stickers with a bigger gingerbread person, and added a sweet little candy cane that he's holding, along with a bow tie and some pom-pom buttons. And on the other side is his sweet little girlfriend. And here they are inside the tree. Aren't they sweet? Next, I was inspired by these gingerbread trees, and these are Mackenzie Child's, and they were very expensive. And I thought there's got to be a way that I can make this for less money. So I went to the Dollar Tree and I found this tree stake. So what I did was I sanded it a bit, and then I had this chestnut apple barrel paint in my stash. It was a little bit too dark, so I just added a little bit of white to it, came up with my color, and I painted it with 2 coats. Then what I did was I took my little Dollar Tree fabric paint and I went ahead and drew on a similar design. And once I had that all on, I took some glitter and I just sprinkled a little bit on for some sparkle and shine while the fabric paint was still wet. I needed a base. What I found at the Dollar Tree was this little deer on this wood stand. And I thought, you know what? That would be perfect. I could just take this deer off and I can use those 2 metal pins that are sticking out to hold my tree up. So I did save this deer for another project and I literally just wiggled it off. And so here is how it turned out. I did go ahead and paint the base with that very same color as the tree, and I added a few little polka dots onto the base with the fabric paint, and voila! We recreated something that was over $200 for just about $3. So next we are going to make a hot cocoa cup or a latte cup that can be used on your Christmas tree as an ornament or as decor in your home. You are going to take a disposable cup. I'm using styrofoam cut to 4 inches in height. And the next thing I'm going to do is cover that up with paper. So I'm putting it on an 8.5 by 11-inch sheet of paper, and I am just going to hot glue that in place to then go ahead and roll that on. So once that hot glue is adhered, I'm rolling it on the diagonal to make sure there's enough to go ahead and cover it. And I'm looking at the edge right there, and what I'm going to do is just fold that paper under so I have a nice straight seam. And then I'm going to apply a little bit more hot glue. So I am applying that hot glue right on that seam that I folded where it's straight, and also the piece that is diagonal to ensure that the paper is adhered around the cup. So now I've done a rough cut to cut off the top, and I'm going to go in closer now with my scissors and use the top of the cup as a guide. Just know this does not have to be perfect because we are going to be putting our whipped cream in there, which is going to hide a little bit of the imperfections. So now I'm just going to repeat that process for the bottom. I'm going to do a quick rough cut, and then I'm going to go in and cut closer on the bottom, taking off all the excess paper. Now the next thing we need to do with our cup is to add the handle. And I am using a little piece of tinsel that measures about 8 inches in length to form my handle. I'm going to take my cup and I'm going to use a little X-Acto knife to punch a hole in that cup. And now that I've got my first hole in there, I'm using my pokey tool to push in and expand that hole big enough to fit the tinsel that I have. I'm going to repeat the same thing for the bottom and then put the tinsel in. And I've got my 2 holes there. Now I'm going to go ahead and insert my tinsel, and I'm using my pliers to pull it through, and I'm doing the same for the bottom. I am just folding the ends down so it will stay nicely, and I'm bending it into the shape that I would like the handle. And if you do not have wired tinsel, you can just use pipe cleaners. And next what we're doing is we are going to fill the cup with a little bit of trash, and that is just so we don't have to use as much spray foam. Now I've got my can of spray foam out, and I'm pulling the trigger, and out comes that whipped cream. And so you're going to go ahead and shape it in to the shape that you want by pulling the trigger. Now be careful because this is super sticky, and it is very difficult to get off your hands if you do that. So I am using the nozzle to kind of shape the whipped cream into place. So just know that it does continue to expand a little bit once it is dried, not a ton, but a little bit. So you can see that you can add as much whipped cream as you'd like. Clearly, I am very generous with my whipped cream. So now what we want to do is add our decorations to the top of it while it is still wet. So I am using sequins here, and I'm using those to represent sprinkles, and I've got a little bit of some sparkly seed beads that I am adding to this as well. And now that I've got my sprinkles on, I want to go ahead and add a straw. I'm using a paper straw that I got from the Dollar Tree. They have them at Hobby Lobby too. I've just gone ahead and cut that down to size, and I'm pushing it into the whipped cream all the way down. So now I thought it'd be so sweet to add a sweet little gingerbread cookie to this. Mine is just a foam sticker that I backed back to back, and I'm sticking it down into the whipped cream. And I have a little peppermint that I want to add to top this sweet little hot cocoa cup off. And once I've got that in there, now I'm gonna decorate the cup. So next, you do want to let it set up a bit before you work with it. And once it's set up, then you're going to decorate. And I'm going to add a sweet little double bow to the handle. And I am just going to tie that on in place. And I thought it would be so sweet to add this candy cane onto the front. So I'm removing the sticker back, and I'm adding a bit of hot glue to go ahead and make sure that is anchored into place. So now I just thought I'd show you a couple other options, and I've got a craft cardstock one representing a gingerbread cup that I used some puffy paints on to make the snowflake. I've got another red one with some sweet ribbon around it, and I added a gingerbread cookie. Now we're going to make some awesome giant lollipops utilizing these two foam discs as the base. So the first thing we're going to do is paint our discs red. Now I am using apple barrel paint in Candy Apple Red, and I'm using just a plain old Dollar Tree brush to go ahead and put that all over the discs. So now we've got all of our sides painted, and I'm just using a heat gun here to speed up the drying process, but that is totally optional. And once our discs are dry, we are going to apply this twisted yarn to it. If you do not have twisted yarn, you can take 2 strands of yarn and just twist them together. I'm going to attach them with hot glue, so I'm putting a dab of hot glue in the middle. And then we're going to wrap this twisted yarn around that starting point in a circular motion. And we are going to add little dabs of hot glue as we go along and wind this yarn around it in a circle. And you just keep repeating this process until the top is covered. Now go onto the side of the circle. So just crossing that over and adding a little bit of hot glue. And we are going to take that yarn and glue it all the way around the circle, covering up the entire edge. And when you reach the end, you're going to go ahead and snip it off and then use some hot glue to anchor that down. You do want to leave a tiny little space because that is where you're going to insert your skewer and your straw, so the stick to hold it up. It's looking so cute. And now we're going to go ahead and add the skewer or chopstick. I'm using a free wooden chopstick from a store like Panda Express, and I am sticking that in, and now I'm applying a dab of hot glue around it, and then I'm going to slide my paper straw right over the edge to disguise that wooden chopstick. Now, my one caution is when you apply the chopstick into the styrofoam, try to make sure that you are sticking it in the center of the styrofoam. Otherwise, it'll poke through on the end and it won't hold firmly. And so now that we've got our straw and our chopstick where it is holding the lollipop securely, we're just going to go ahead and make a bow to add on to the lollipop. And I'm just making a single loop bow on each side, and then I'm taking a piece of ribbon to tie it together. So if you have any kind of scrap of ribbon, a zip tie, any kind of pipe cleaner wire, anything will work. I just happen to have that right there on my desk. Just make sure that you are hiding the bad part on the back side. So for me, it is a knot. And now I'm going ahead and clipping off the excess pieces of that ribbon that I used to tie it together. And now I'm going to clip the end of the bow so I can separate it from the spool of ribbon. And then I'm going to turn it on its side and measure one end of the ribbon against the other one so they're even. Then all you have to do is pinch the edges together and then cut them on a diagonal so that you will have the perfect dovetail on both sides. So now let's go ahead and flip that over and attach it with a bit of hot glue and then put a little embellishment on in the center. And how cute are these? Oh my gosh, I love them and I hope you will too. Now we're going to move on to this big wooden gingerbread boy, and I got that wooden base from the Dollar Tree. And the first thing that I did was I just painted it with acrylic paint, and then what I did was I stamped its face when it was dry. That is a peachy keen stamp that I used, and then I traced it with a fine tip permanent marker and drew in the highlights with a white Jelly Roll pen. For his cheeks, I used an alcohol ink pen, but you can use some blush or eyeshadow or anything that you have on hand. Then what I did was I moved on to the icing, and for him I did use caulk again because I had that, and also fabric paint. So caulking I did for the bow so it would be thicker, and I also added that caulking to attach those 3 little glittery styrofoam balls in the middle, and then I added some blingy hearts to the bands around his hands, its wrists, and also to his bow tie. And lastly, what I did was use some fabric paint to make those squiggly little lines freehand, and then I sprinkled it with some iridescent glitter, and he was done. And here he is on my tree. I've got more brand new gingerbread videos coming up, as well as some hits from past years too. So please stay tuned, subscribe, and click that bell if you'd like to be notified when I post my next video. So thank you so much for spending time with me, and I hope you have an amazing day.